The Harper government lays out its plan for the new session of Parliament. Some differing views on proposed changes to the minimum wage. And a possible deal in the U.S. budget impasse.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The Stephen Harper government has laid out its agenda for the new session of Parliament.
The throne speech was delivered this afternoon by Governor General David Johnston. Now, amongst other things, it contains law and order promises, looks to cut federal spending, and also features some items sure to please cell phone and cable TV customers. We hope to have a full report for you coming up later in the news hour.
After a 3-year freeze, Ontario's minimum wage could soon be on the rise. A provincial panel on the issue will visit the city on Friday, and today officials with Poverty Thunder Bay hosted an event at Victoriaville. They say people who are living off $10.25 per hour are struggling to make ends meet. However, a new proposal would see the minimum wage hiked every 2 years to benefit employees and help businesses as well. Courtney Rutherford reports.
A recent report by Labour and Income Dynamics shows that low-wage earners are no longer just high school students earning pocket money. It's also women, racialized workers, and recent immigrants who survive off of $10.25 an hour.
A lot of people are struggling. I think 60% of Ontarians are over the age of 25 are working minimum wage jobs. It's like a lot of recent graduates that can't find work in their field, senior citizens. So we're saying to the government, they need a livable, secure wage to be able to pay the rent and food and while they're working on their careers.
The Minimum Wage Advisory Panel will be in Thunder Bay to discuss a system that could potentially set a wage that is fair, predictable for businesses, and transparent. In 2006, minimum wage was $7.75 an hour and climbed up 1/4 the following year. March 2008 saw the start of annual increases of 75 cents. And by March 2010, minimum wage had risen to $10.25 an hour and hasn't changed since. Charlotte Robinson is the president of the Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce. She's hoping their solution will help those who need more money.
Which is why we're saying if you went to every 2 years, reviewing it, everybody knows that's how it's going to be. It's going to be set based on the inflation rate. People can plan, businesses can be prepared, it actually addresses the cost of living increases, and then we don't see that negative impact where it's actually reducing the job availability for folks who are at the lower end of the wage scale.
A study conducted by the Wellesley Institute also showed that in 2011, over 183,000 employees over the age of 25 worked for minimum wage. Those included university students who were forced to work part-time in order to pay for tuition.
I generally think that's good, just because of tuition costs. I don't know, it's hard for a student to work and make tuition payments, So it's a good thing, I'd say.
I don't know, it'd be nice to get paid more for baseline jobs. Usually minimum wage jobs are pretty not fun to work. And I don't know, more money is always good.
Robinson, along with Poverty Thunder Bay, will meet with the advisory panel on Friday to provide input on the city's current situation and pass on their thoughts about a new wage system to be put in place. Courtney Rutherford, TBT News.
The province has released a new plan in hopes of getting tens of thousands of students into the workforce. Ontario's youth employment rate is teetering around 17%. That's more than double the overall average of 7.5%. The Minister of Education, Liz Sandals, was at Churchill High School to announce the Youth Job Strategy. $295 million will be invested into 4 programs over the next 2 years. That funding will help young people find work by offering incentives to employers. There's also increased dollars for programs that help students start their own business. Sandals believes the high unemployment rate is directly related to the recession. She says a lot of older workers lost their retirement savings and are working longer.
If you have older workers staying, there's less opportunity for younger workers. The other thing that seems to be happening is sometimes you'll have people who had jobs that have disappeared during the recession, older workers who are going into jobs that would normally be entry-level jobs that younger people would take.
Lakehead School Board student trustee Logan Turner says people he knows in high school are finding it hard to get a job, and one of the big barriers is a lack of experience.
They're so focused on getting through school with good marks to get into university, and also doing all of the extracurriculars that they have to do, so whether that's sports or clubs. So the issue is that there's not necessarily enough time to also have a job as well, and so with work experience being a major issue in terms of getting a job, students are having issues with finding jobs.
One of the initiative's 4 programs was launched back in September. The government says it's already helped more than 1,200 young people.
A controversial decision by City Council to remove 11 tamarack trees has had a negative impact on the family who first made the request. It was a divisive issue last week at City Hall that ended with a 7-6 vote in favor of removing the trees. But following weeks of controversy, the family has now withdrawn its request. The deputation asking for the trees to be removed first came more than 3 years ago. The cost to remove and replant a new species came with a cost to the city of $8,500. But some on council were more worried about the precedent being set. City staff predicted more people would call and ask for so-called nuisance trees to be removed from around their properties, and that has been the case. The issue comes back for ratification at council later this month. Several deputations were already planned by those who wanted to speak out against the tree removal. Despite the change of heart by the original complainant, the final decision on whether to move forward with the plan is still up to council.
Looks like a Thunder Bay man's petition to improve his favorite bicycle route has been heard loud and clear. City officials say a long-awaited culvert will be installed sometime in the next 2 weeks. Yesterday on the News Hour, we told you about Ken Shields' efforts to improve this unofficial bike path in the Intercity area. It links Winnipeg Avenue to Carrick Street, but there's a creek about 6 feet wide blocking the path. Shields says the city promised to put a culvert in 3 years ago. As of this week, the project had yet to move ahead, so he started a petition. The city's active transportation coordinator says the idea was considered in 2008 and the creek measured in 2011. The culvert project was added to the city budget last year.
The culvert was put in the 2013 budget to be constructed in 2013. As you know, there was the flooding last year in Thunder Bay, and that caused a lot of damage to various sewers and various culverts throughout the city. So the culvert at Winnipeg Avenue had to be prioritized based on how important it is compared to all the other ones. So it's all been done in sequence, and the really important ones have been taken care of. The priorities sewers have been taken care of, and now we're able to get to this.
The culvert should be installed in about 10 days. Shields says he is cautiously optimistic about today's announcement, but until he actually sees it happen, he says he will continue to collect names for the petition in order to keep the momentum going.
More than 3,100 solar panels have now been installed on city-owned buildings. A ribbon-cutting ceremony was held today to celebrate that accomplishment following the completion of the last of 6 buildings. The multi-million-dollar investment will create new streams of revenue for the city. But as Dennis Ward reports, the venture has been scaled back significantly from a $14 million project to a $4 million investment.
6 city-owned buildings, including the new EMS headquarters, Port Arthur Arena, and the Victoriaville Parkade, are now complete with rooftop solar arrays. The city will see 2 streams of revenue from the projects. Thunder Bay Hydro will pay a lease for the use of the 6 rooftops, and profits generated from the 20-year deal with the Ontario Power Authority will also go back to the city in the form of a dividend. Acting Mayor Ian Angus says it's a good move for the city and the local utility.
We've got all these roofs that, quite frankly, weren't making any revenue for us, just causing us expenses. And so we now have an opportunity to regain some of that, as well as being very environmentally friendly by producing our own electricity. So it's a win-win for everybody.
These 6 projects will create about 860,000 kilowatts per year, which sounds like a lot, but will actually only power about 100 homes. That's in part because the venture has been scaled back significantly from the original vision.
Our original goal, our long-term plan, was to continue and invest more and start going into more roofs of this type. What's happened over the last year or so at the provincial level is they've been changing the policies, and what I'm seeing is that economically these types of projects are less attractive. So we're looking for other opportunities. I'm not sure we're going to see them, and I'm not sure we're going to see additional renewable investment in Thunder Bay by anyone, really, not just us.
The Thunder Bay Hydro president says without increased transmission capability, he can't see additional power projects that don't already have a contract coming online anytime soon. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
One man is dead following a single vehicle crash this afternoon near Sistonen's Corners. Thunder Bay OPP say an eastbound pickup truck veered into the oncoming lane and then struck a rock cut on the opposite side. The highway was shut down for about 2 hours while emergency crews worked to remove the 64-year-old Alberta man from his vehicle. He was airlifted to the regional hospital where he succumbed to his injuries.
Thunder Bay police are now releasing details of a large drug bust over the weekend. Drug enforcement officers carried out a search warrant on a room at a hotel on West Arthur Street on Saturday and discovered over a pound of cocaine. The street value of the drug is about $57,000, and police also seized $6,800 in cash. 2 men were arrested at the scene. A 38-year-old Brampton man and a 35-year-old Thunder Bay resident are now facing drug trafficking and other charges.
An impressive achievement was marked by the Salvation Army today. The organization is celebrating the 25th anniversary of its Habitat program, which provides housing and assistance to people with disabilities. This building on Pearl Street offers supportive housing designed to help people who struggle to live independently and need assistance day to day. The Salvation Army receives financial assistance to run the Habitat program from the District Social Services Board and the city. Major Rob Kerr says it's helped to keep people off the street and in a safe environment for the past quarter century.
Place because the staff make it a great place. They work hard. It is a loving environment. Everybody who's here feels welcome. They feel loved. They feel encouraged. And they really do get the supports they need to make them feel valued as members of society.
Kerr expects the Habitat program to continue successfully for many more years to come.
Lakehead University students got a chance to explore career options and network with future employers today. The Career and Job Expo 2013 welcomed a variety of Canadian organizations that are looking to recruit students and upcoming graduates. Some of the positions available are co-op programs and permanent full-time job opportunities. 25 companies were in attendance and helped prepare students for the on-the-spot job interview.
Well, it helps students to connect with potential employers, to learn how to present themselves, to maybe learn about different directions they can go with their career or take their program. And it gives them experience too in professional communication and some ideas maybe to include on their resume.
Career expos are held at the university at various times throughout the year.
A Long Lac man is celebrating a big lottery win. Andre Boulanger was in Toronto today to collect a prize of $125,000 thanks to a win in the October 1st daily Keno draw. Boulanger says he plans to save some of his winnings, start shopping for a new boat, and to spoil his daughter and grandson.
The Shelter House has begun selling tickets for its largest ever fundraising raffle. It's called Dollars for Shelter. A $30,000 grand prize winner will be drawn on Christmas Eve. And there are several other cash prizes and early bird prizes available to be won, including an authentic Carolina Hurricanes jersey signed by local stars Eric and Jordan Stahl. A Roy Thomas print is up for grabs as well. Fundraisers like this one provides the backbone for all Shelter House operations, according to Executive Director Patty Haidu, as more than 34% of the Shelter House's annual budget must be raised through community sources.
3 first tickets sold. It's going to be great for...
It really is what we need to keep the doors open and offering services at the current levels. We really don't want to have to look at cutting back services or reducing hours or any of those kinds of things that other shelters are sometimes forced to do if they don't have enough operating revenue, because we feel that this is not only the humane thing to do, but it is an essential service to the citizens of Thunder Bay.
Without it, we would have no end of social problems. We would, quite frankly, have no end of deaths on the street. So it's really important that we help Shelter House in every which way we can, and the one way where individuals in the community can do it is buying the tickets.
There are 7,500 tickets available at a cost of $20 apiece. They can be purchased at J.B. Evans and various other locations across the city or by contacting the Shelter House directly.
And speaking of lotteries, Fiona, weather-wise, I think everybody in, well, not everybody in northwestern Ontario, but at least in the Lakehead felt like they hit the jackpot. It was a beautiful day.
Oh, it was absolutely gorgeous. You know things are good when the FedEx guy is talking about how great it is to work outside. It was just a beautiful day. And that's because this low with all that rain moved off to the east. It's basically still over the Great Lakes, but we've passed it. And we've had some nice, slightly warmer air move in. Unfortunately, this is a very narrow corridor of relief that we have been enjoying today, so don't expect it to last long. Things are going to be cooling off and getting wet again. But today we did hit a high of 11 Celsius. Started out a little bit on the cloudy side, but for the most part, the clouds have been diminishing all day. Lots of sunshine, which is just gorgeous when you see all the colors out there. There's something so pretty in northwestern Ontario at this time of year. Now, if we take a look at what's going on across the region, everybody's really enjoying a lot of above seasonal weather, double digits for even up into Pickle Lake. That's quite a fair ways north, and they're at this time at 10 Celsius, 11 in Dryden and Kenora, Fort Frances, 12 with a fair amount of sunshine. Sault Ste. Marie on the cloudy side, but as I said, that's because that low is continuing to trek in an eastward manner with all of that rain and cloud cover. Tonight, though, it's going to be a cool one without any clouds to hold in any of that daytime heating. It's all going to dissipate and it's going to drop like a rock. 0 Celsius is the overnight low under partly cloudy skies. And that's with winds tapering off down to about 9 kilometers per hour. As we head into Thursday, there's that second wave, that cold front moving in. Now, it's a little bit more aggressive as you head further south. The colder air, more direct route. We're more of on the weakening edge of this front. So it's going to move in. It could bring some spotty showers and some cooler temperatures. Tomorrow will be maybe a degree or two cooler than today, but the real cool air is going to be in about another day behind it. As we head into Friday and Saturday, that's when you're going to notice the temperatures really start to feel a little bit more fall-like. I'll have more details on what you can expect for the end of the weekend into the all-important weekend. It's later on in the news hour.
All right, thanks very much, Fiona. Well, south of the border, with the debt ceiling deadline looming, U.S. Senate leaders have brokered a deal to end the U.S. budget impasse. Details on that story and more as your news hour continues.
Time for pointing fingers or blame. This is a time of reconciliation.
A last-minute deal has been reached in the U.S. debt impasse. U.S. Senate leaders announced it today, aiming to end a partial government shutdown and to prevent a historic lapse in the government's borrowing ability. Neil MacDonald has details.
The senior Republican in the United States Senate officially declared defeat today.
This is far less than many of us had hoped for, frankly.
In fact, Republicans achieved just about nothing except damage to the economy. The public is angry. The party has cratered in the polls. And as another Republican senator noted today, the party's alpha males were in the end shoved aside.
Leadership, I must fully admit, was provided primarily by women in the Senate.
Democrats stood firm. President Obama now looks tougher. The health care law Republicans wanted repealed is not just intact, but more popular, and Obama conceded just about nothing. No wonder this top Democrat was magnanimous.
Madam President, this is not a time for pointing fingers of blame. This is a time of reconciliation.
The unofficial leader of the Tea Party insurgency responded by attacking his Republican colleagues.
The United States Senate has stayed with the traditional approach of the Washington establishment of maintaining the status quo.
It's also now clear that John Boehner, the senior Republican in the House of Representatives, intends to defy the Tea Party and allow more moderate Republicans to join with Democrats and seal the deal. Still, all this amounts to is a few months of delay, not a solution. When this deal expires in the early new year, the Tea Party will still be in Congress and almost certainly still itching for another fight. Neil MacDonald, CBC News, Washington.
As mentioned earlier, the Stephen Harper government has laid out its agenda for the new session of Parliament. Among other things, it contains law and order promises, looks to cut federal spending, and features some items sure to please cell phone and cable TV customers. Julie Van Dusen reports.
Pomp and ceremony as the Governor General arrived on Parliament Hill to a 21-gun salute. David Johnson was greeted by a smiling Stephen Harper, then it was off to the Senate. The upper chamber has been the bane of Harper's existence, but tradition dictates that this is where the speech is read.
Un lac mégantic.
The speech began with a moment of silence to the victims of the Lac-Mégantic train derailment, and later a promise to increase the safety of the transportation of dangerous goods.
When Canadians make decisions about how to spend their money, they must be assured of a voice, a choice, and fair treatment.
There's a big focus on consumers. The speech promised changes for cable and cell phone users. There's even a pledge to work on the gap between Canadian and U.S. prices for goods.
I'm very happy to see that they're finally listening to what we've been proposing for the last 5 years.
There are measures in the speech meant to help Aboriginal Canadians. More training, more sharing of resources, and more effective, accountable on-reserve education. Also, the government says it's close to a trade deal with Europe, and that could mean more European cheese will be allowed into Canada.
I am very concerned that Stephen Harper will be throwing Canadian dairy farmers under the bus on this one.
In the audience, Supreme Court judges, MPs, and senators. The government reaffirmed its pledge to reform the Senate or abolish it. During the speech, no sign of Senators Pam Wallen, Mike Duffy, or Patrick Brazo, the former Conservatives under RCMP investigation. The government wants this speech to be a blueprint to take into the next election, but the opposition parties say it's just a distraction from the ongoing Senate expenses scandal. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
A sobering admission from the head of Canada's prisons today. Don Head, Commissioner of Corrections Services Canada, says federal institutions still struggle to deal with the needs of inmates with mental health illness. Head was testifying at an inquiry into the death of 19-year-old Ashley Smith. The troubled Ontario teen choked herself to death while guards under orders not to intervene watched. Smith spent most of her 11 months in federal custody and segregation. Head says prisons still need help to find viable alternatives.
I agree with you. Any prolonged period of time in segregation is not healthy.
And you're, of course, aware of all the studies and the literature on this, that this is almost the worst place to put somebody with a mental illness, isn't it?
It's the worst place for anybody.
Head says CSC needs more funding and resources to deal with more complex cases and says the most severe cases should be transferred out of the prison system.
Some emotional moments today in a Calgary courtroom. The man who was beaten and sexually assaulted by his roommate and business partner, Dustin Paxton, spoke today. Paxton has already been convicted. It was all part of his dangerous offender hearing. Brian Labby has more.
The victim told the court that he will never fully recover from his injuries, that he lives in perpetual fear and has flashbacks of the assaults he suffered at the hands of Dustin Paxton. The victim, who cannot be identified, arrived at the courthouse with his family. He didn't want to talk to reporters, instead reading his victim impact statement to the court and to his attacker, Dustin Paxton. The man says he suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. He says he has trouble sleeping and feels ashamed and grossed out when he thinks of the abuse he suffered during his relationship with Paxton, his former roommate and business partner. The victim told court, quote, "He used to be extremely good-looking to women. Now I'm disfigured." He says he's had several operations, bone grafts. He has plates in his head and faces more surgery to reconstruct his face, eyes, and cheeks. He says he has an incurable traumatic brain injury. He told the court, quote, "There's a big question mark hanging over my head. I live in perpetual confusion and fear. It's frustrating and scary to have to live the rest of my life with the scars and the memories of the attacks." He added, quote, "I don't want to live the rest of my life in fear. I want to make sure no one has to suffer like me." For the first time, Dustin Paxton addressed the court. He said, quote, "He's fully committed to the regime of counseling and programming that is essential to my rehabilitation." But Dustin Paxton did not apologize or show any remorse. Instead, he smirked while the victim read his statement. The judge must now decide whether Paxton is a dangerous offender and should be jailed indefinitely. A decision could come down before the end of the year. Brian Labby, CBC News, Calgary.
Police in Newfoundland have confirmed a double murder-suicide. A man and woman were shot dead in a doctor's office last night in Conception Bay South. A body found at a St. John's cemetery this morning is connected to those deaths. Police say they found a gun believed to have been used in the killings. They also confirmed the 3 individuals involved were known to each other.
Toronto's mayor had no comment today when asked about a ruling by the Ontario Press Council that dismissed complaints against Canada's 2 largest newspapers. The council says the Toronto Star and the Globe and Mail acted responsibly and in the public interest in reporting on drug allegations against Mayor Rob Ford and his brother, Councillor Doug Ford. That ruling from the newspaper industry arbiter says the Ford brothers were given more than ample opportunity to respond before the papers published their stories back in May.
There is growing concern over some homeopathic treatments and the effects they may be having on vaccination rates. Health officials are worried too many people are skipping immunization in favor of alternative treatments that may not work. Kim Bruneber has more.
I would still go more to
your restless legs leading to sleepless nights? Then Ali Ramadan recommends this, magnesium, the homeopathic kind. The kind that doesn't actually contain any magnesium at all. It's diluted until there's absolutely no measurable trace of the metal.
There's no way to really know how it works. All we know is it works.
You want to prevent an infectious disease like the flu? His clinic advertises a similar alternative, a no-sode, a homeopathic remedy made from infectious body fluids like blood, pus, phlegm, even feces. Diluted until there's no active ingredient, not a molecule.
So these things can be an alternative to the vaccine?
Well, they can be an alternative to the vaccine for sure.
It's a growing industry and more Canadians are buying the claims. Protect yourself from disease with no side effects and no needles.
If it's something I can take that is going to help me stay healthy and doesn't adversely affect me, then I'm going to give it a try.
That kind of thinking drives public health officials crazy because vaccination rates are dropping, leading to outbreaks of disease.
Only 62% of kids age 2 are actually up to date for their shots. And that goes hand in glove with a rising campaign of misinformation about vaccines.
That concern prompted Health Canada to take action. In March, no-sodes will have to bear a warning label that reads, "This product is not intended to be an alternative to vaccination." With a baby on the way, Majarian hasn't decided whether he will protect his child with a vaccine or a no-sode. Doctors fear if more people opt for vaccine alternatives like no-sodes, it could compromise so-called herd immunity, the type of public protection you get when 95% of the population has been immunized. Now, every homeopath we talked to said they would never tell a patient not to get vaccinated and to take a no-sode instead. They said it all comes down to personal choice. But according to health officials, that choice could affect us all. Kim Brunhuber, CBC News, Toronto.
And still with health news, it turns out that biology and not bad parenting may be responsible for why kids can be cruel. A 6-year study suggests that the part of the brain critical in empathy and understanding is still developing well into the teen years. Cognitive empathy, that's the ability to see something from another's perspective, begins rising steadily in girls at the age of 13, but apparently it doesn't even start in boys until the age of 15. Here's a look at today's market activity now. The TSX posted a 25-point gain, climbing to 12,957. Word of the U.S. budget deal pushed the Dow up 205 points to 15,373, and the NASDAQ jumped ahead 45 points to 3839. Canadian dollar dropped over 0.4 cents to 96.77 cents U.S. Gold was up $9 to $1,282 an ounce, and oil up over $1 to $102 a barrel. Well, big game in the National League Championship Series this afternoon. St. Louis Cardinals hoping to finally finalize that berth in the World Series.
Yeah, for those of you who maybe have taken the last couple of weeks off to go hunting or whatever, and you didn't like the weather, or you say, hey, well, wait till tomorrow, well, you're in luck. 2 baseball games again today. It is win or stay home in Los Angeles this afternoon in the National League Championship Series. The Dodgers were hoping Zach Greinke would get the better of Joe Kelly in the mound matchup, with the Cardinals leading this series 3-1. Well, the Dodgers would get to Kelly in the bottom of the second. Juan Uribe continues to come up with clutch hits. This time he'll single to center, and that will send in the, well, he's sort of chugging home. Adrian Gonzalez scores to open the scoring. The attack on another. Greinke helps out his own cause with a base knock to left. Yasiel Puig will make his way in to make it 2-zip. The Cardinals battle back to tie it in the third. Matt Holliday finds some real estate in center. It's a two-bagger, and we've got a game suddenly tied at 2. But it didn't last for long. The former Padre and Red Sox slugger Gonzalez will get a hold of this Kelly pitch, and he'll send it into orbit to right center. It easily clears the wall. It's a solo shot. The Dodgers have built on that. They've got a 4-2 lead on the Cardinals in the 7th inning. Over in the American League Championship Series, the Detroit Tigers will try and knot things with Boston at 2 tonight. It's Doug Fister against Jake Peavy in the mound matchup. Checking out Game 3 last night. Not a lot of scoring, so you may want to pay attention. Former J for a day Mike Napoli takes Justin Verlander deep and out to left. That snaps the pitcher's 34-inning scoreless inning streak, and it's 1-0 Red Sox in the 7th. And it will stay that way because Koji Uehara comes on in relief with 2 on in the 8th, proceeds to get Prince Fielder to chase a bad pitch. He has now failed to drive in a run in 57 playoff at-bats. Boston wins 1-0. They lead that series 2-1. The Thunder Bay North Stars picked up where they left off after a successful road trip by dominating Dryden last night in their home opener at the Gardens. Ryan Benazzo has the highlights.
After 6 games on the road to start their season, Jeremy Aduno's North Stars finally on Fort William Gardens ice. Taking on Dryden, it's the Stars that strike first, 5.5 in. Matthias Gardeman, nice work down low. He can't pot the wraparound, but there's Chris Kellaway on the doorstep. Bang it through the wickets of Shane Didey. Thunder Bay grabs the early lead. Just minutes later, Brandon Wolframe nearly makes it a 2-goal game. Short-handed, he picks Chris Varen's pocket, falls, whoop, puts on a sweet move, getting the better of Varen again. You can't beat Didey, it's still 1-0. But special teams, not so special for the Ice Dogs. Taylor Santarelli steps around Patrick King. He snipes the far side. That is a shorthanded goal. 2-0 Stars after 20 minutes. To the second, just over 2 minutes in, Robert McLean extends the lead to 3. He knocks it home from in close. Kerry Brown had the initial shot. Jeremy Aduno's club in full control of this hockey game. Shortly thereafter, tempers start to flare as Jesse Taylor and Zachary Kurtz take exception to one another. Taylor gets pulled down on top of Kurtz. Brendan Enns joins in the altercation, and that starts a whole big mess. 6 players were ejected. Taylor and Kurtz each got a game. Enns and Braden Foote were both assessed double game misconducts for Dryden, as were Tim Kavar and Brandon Wolframe for the North Stars. This went on for a while. Thunder Bay would end up on a power play as a result of the melee. Chris Kellaway makes Dryden pay with his second of the evening as this game quickly slips out of hand for the Ice Dogs. The Stars score 6 in the period, 3 of which came with the man advantage. There were 8 power play goals in this game, if you can believe it. Dryden scored a few in the third, but the Stars skate to a 10-5 win. Aduno afterwards on his team's hot start.
We've won games in all different ways. We've won close ones. We've won games like we did tonight. We've just been finding ways. We've had balanced scoring. We've had good goaltending. We've had guys, step up and play out of position. So we're finding ways, but it's tough every night.
Ryan Benazzo, TBT Sports.
2 games in the NHL tonight. Calgary looks for its first win in Anaheim in 17 games, and the Rangers are in Washington to face the Caps. Both those teams awful so far this year. Last night, Toronto scores first on the power play. Tyler Bozak gets his third on wild tender Darcy Kemper. Then the Leafs send a streaky Trevor Smith busting through the defense. He'll get his first goal as a Leaf, and it's 2-0. Wild captain Jason Pominville breaks James Reimer's shutout pin before the end of the period. He'll follow up his own rebound. He's up to 3 on the year. The Buds get the only goal of the second. Mason Raymond goes to his forehand. Alec James Van Riemsdyk, he ended up with a pair. Toronto wins another one, 4-1. In Pittsburgh, Sidney Crosby does all the work. He'll dish to Chris Kunitz for his second. Pens over the Oilers 3-2. In Philadelphia, the Flyers waste a 2-goal effort from Ty McGinn as Vancouver rallies to win it 3-2. In Winnipeg, Danny Briere set up the first goal, and he would score an empty netter as the Canadians blank the Jets 3-zip. Curry Price with the shutout. Glendale, Arizona now. Corey Conacher with the winner. Jason Spezza with the hat trick. Senators edged the Coyotes 4-3. And Patrick Sharp had a goal and the shootout winner. There was no tape available of that one. Hard to believe, but the Hawks beat the Hurricanes 3-2 was the final. Eric and Jordan Stahl kept off the score sheet. England and the defending champs of Spain have qualified for next year's World Cup of Soccer in Brazil. England blanked Poland 2-0. Spain won by that same score over Georgia. Russia and Bosnia-Herzegovina also qualified. And thanks to a hat trick from teenager Kekata Mane against Seattle, the Vancouver Whitecaps are still in the playoff hunt in Major League Soccer.
Now here's Daigo Kobayashi in for Kekuta Mane! It's a hat trick for Kekuta Mane!
When Kekuta Mane wrote his name into the record books as the youngest player ever to score a hat trick in the MLS, it didn't take long before the news traveled globally.
Definitely my parents back in Texas. I called them after the game, and they were like, they couldn't even talk. They were just like screaming loud and all that. I mean, some people watched the game actually, and they called me right out of the game, and some saw it on Facebook, social media thingy.
You got calls from Gambia?
Yeah, I did get calls from Gambia.
While he still may be just a teenager, Mane can definitely finish like a seasoned pro. We've all seen how good his pace can be, one of the fastest players on the squad. But last week versus Seattle, he showed us another component to his game. All 3 goals, a perfect clinical touch.
Kekuta Mane, he's already got one tonight, and Kekuta Mane gets a second!
But he knows he can't let that one game go to his head.
He's still got a lot to learn. You know, I mean, he took his goals well. He was very composed and showed great composure for such a young age. He's still, you know, not the finished article, still got a lot to learn. He still has these moments where you can see his age comes through, but the potential is there.
How much advice do you give him?
A few things. I give him a few chosen words at times.
The 18-year-old's breakout game single-handedly keeps the Caps' slim playoff hopes alive. Realistically, Vancouver needs to win its final 2 games against Colorado on the road and at home, plus receive help from other teams in order to make the postseason.
As long as we still have a chance, that's what we need to keep fighting for. And you know, obviously it was a huge game against Seattle, and we were able to gain a lot of confidence from that. So it's crucial now that we make sure that we ride that wave, and we make sure that those performances stay consistent.
And if the rookie striker can keep scoring like this, he'll give his team a fighting chance. And right now, that's all the Caps can ask for.
And the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame in Toronto is welcoming 11 new members. This year's class includes former NHL star Joe Sakic, curling legend Russ Howard, a 2-time world champ, and cyclist Allison Sador. Last night in high school varsity sports, Hammersholt stays unbeaten in girls basketball, beating Churchill by 60 points. St. Ignatius is now second in boys varsity volleyball. Westgate leads the way at a perfect 8-0. Former Tampa Bay Buccaneer Josh Freeman will start at quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings Monday night when they take on the winless New York Giants. New England has lost star linebacker Jared Mayo for the remainder of the season with a torn chest muscle. And Canada's Eugenie Bouchard is out of the Luxembourg Open tennis tournament, losing her first-round match to Germany's Andrea Petkovic. Tennis and golf. It's those 2 sports that never seem to end. They're still going.
And the names of the players never seem to end, too. Always really tough to pronounce. All right, thanks very much, Randy.
All right, well, I've got news that is really going to make Holly's night. One of her favorite shows is moving to our lineup tonight. I'm talking about Parenthood. With more, here's a complete lineup on Teletalk.
Real or fiction, fact or fantasy, the drama keeps coming on Global Thunder Bay. Starting at 8 on Survivor, Caleb thinks he's in control, but the Culpeppers are making their move. Then at 9 on Parenthood, Zeke embraces the chance to provide his grandchildren with some life lessons. And at 10 on Ironside, a high-end poker game is robbed and Teddy goes on an undercover assignment. Over on CKPR Thunder Bay, money makes the world go round and makes fools of us all. At 8 p.m., a new idea has the battle lines drawn and checkbooks at the ready on Dragon's Den. And at 9 on Republic of Doyle, Jake and Mal are completely fooled by a devious client. Teletalk is brought to you by Points, the traffic ticket specialists.
Well, the beginning of fall, a lot of places we're seeing above seasonal temperatures, Fiona. It's looking like fall is now settling in across the country.
Yeah, it's definitely moving in from the west, kind of blanketing its way across the country through the provinces, and we'll show you how in a moment. But today, let's celebrate what happened. We hit 11 Celsius, a double digit at this time of year, always a nice surprise, and with a fair amount of sunshine, those clouds are just diminishing throughout the day, so it was really quite beautiful. But let's take a moment to accept reality and see what's happening. Vancouver, 12 Celsius, lots of sunshine today. Prince George, 10. But the moment you hit, say, Alberta, the temperatures have dropped up to about 10 degrees in some areas in the last 24 hours alone. That's despite some sunshine in Alberta. Saskatchewan, a fair amount of cloud cover, but they were at 16 yesterday, so much, much cooler today than yesterday. Meanwhile, Winnipeg, during the same time period, the temperatures have actually risen about 7 degrees. They topped out at 15 this afternoon, despite the cloud cover at this time. Now, as we head into southern Ontario, Toronto hit a high of 21 this afternoon. And folks there are really going to enjoy that because the rain is moving in, as are the cooler temperatures over the next few days. Clouds are already starting to roll in. Ottawa, Montreal, also within the 17 Celsius range, but a little bit more cloud cover throughout the day. Quebec City saw periods of rain throughout the day as well, with above seasonal temperatures. Meanwhile, the Maritimes are also cooling down. We've got showers pretty much across the board. Fredericton, Halifax, both at 12, 11 in Charlottetown. St. John's currently at 3 Celsius under partly cloudy skies. It was actually a glorious day in St. John's, but the rain and wind are going to start up again tomorrow afternoon. Now today, not a whole lot happening. It was a nice sunshine and clear skies for most of the afternoon, but tomorrow with this front moving in, we've got that narrow band of precipitation. Then behind it, we have cooler air and another possibility of precipitation developing and moving in for Friday and possibly into Saturday. Temperature-wise, this is where we're at right now. A lot of areas seeing double-digit highs, definitely above seasonal. Overnight tonight, you can see where the freezing points are going to be moving into the region, and it's going to be cool. Unfortunately, tomorrow, that cool air is not really going to recede. Thunder Bay will get probably another day of double-digit temperatures, but everywhere else, sinking down into the low end of the single digits, and by Friday and, yes, Saturday, it's just not going to warm up much. We are going to be definitely into single digits seasonal, or, you know, it could happen. We could be slightly below seasonal as well, but for the most part, seasonal and cool. Tonight, flirting with the freezing mark in most areas. Upsala sitting right at it. And a slight risk of rain as you head towards Red Lake. Tomorrow we've got periods of light rain possible in the Greenstone area. Everywhere else, mix of sun and cloud and temperatures in the mid to high single digits. Thunder Bay at this hour is at 11 Celsius under mainly clear skies, and partly cloudy tonight, sitting right on the freezing mark. As you head off to work tomorrow, you'll start the day very cool, mainly cloudy and 3 Celsius. Then we have a good chance of some spotty showers. A high of 11 is possible, but as I said, it's going to be wet and cool as we head into Friday. Temperature drops down to 9 with a passing shower. 8 by Saturday. We'll sit there again for Sunday under some heavy cloud, and by Monday we're down to 7. You can see that slow, gentle slide, and the concern is there's a risk of a passing shower these days, but with the lows being below freezing, that's where Holly's favorite snow comes in. It's a possibility, slight risk, but we'll worry about that later on. That's your forecast.
I didn't know you were looking forward to snow.
Oh, sure.
She's been talking about it
Yeah.
non-stop.
Yeah, I have my parka ready to go.
In other news, the low cost of airfares continue to be an ongoing attraction. That includes Australia, where even a kangaroo recently showed up at the airport looking for a flight. Details when we return.
Decisions. With so many brands of shampoo to choose from, what's a roo to do? That seems to be on the mind of this kangaroo that wandered into a pharmacy at Melbourne's domestic airport. The animal had been injured and may have been looking for a place to hide. Wildlife officers tranquilized him and took him away for treatment.
Actually, he was just looking for those small travel bottles.
Yeah,
bag.
yeah, exactly.
All right, let's recap our top story of the day. All eyes, of course, are on Ottawa as the speech from the throne was delivered. Good news for consumers is roaming fees for cell phone users, as well as unbundling of all your favorite television channels were included as a promise there. We're also looking at some spending cuts and some new law and order measures as the Harper government unveiled its new agenda for the legislative season. We'll have full details on that story and more coming up tonight on the late edition. But for now, that'll do it for our early evening look at news, weather, and sports. A reminder for news on demand, log on to tbnewswatch.com. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again tomorrow.